What is going on, YouTube? How are you feeling today? I'm feeling pretty good. It's me, your boy, Nick King, and I'm here today to talk to you about something that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm talking about capturing beasts. I'm talking about taking a bunch of little beasts
and making them mine.
and we're going to be counting down the top 10 best beast capture franchises ever. Media, be it video games, television shows, toy lines. The definition of beast is going to get kind of loose, and the definition of capture is going to get kind of loose, but they all more or less follow the same archetype. So before we dive into the Big 10, I got a few honorable mentions that I'd like to get out of the way. Starting with one of the first ever virtual pet toy objects, the Tamagotchi. Tamagotchi received its worldwide release in 1997. And they were these little keychains, little plastic things, bright colors, tiny screens that had these cute little monsters on them. The object of Tamagotchi is to keep alive and grow your little virtual pet by keeping track of 4 different meters. The hunger meter, the happy meter, the bracelet meter, and the discipline meter. You do this by feeding it bread or candy when it's hungry and scolding it if it's being a brat. After it eats, it's gonna poop. And it gets poop all over the place and you gotta clean it up. Because if you don't clean it up, your Tamagotchi's gonna get sick from all the poop. Your little baby's gonna get poop sick and it's going to die from poop sickness because you're a bad owner. Please don't let your babies get poop sick. Pretty revolutionary in the idea of virtual pet, so I had to mention it in this video. The next honorable mention that I gotta shout out is Beyblades. Beyblade was a manga that started getting published in 1999 and ran until 2004. It got a toy line starting in the year 2000, and the show started airing in 2001. There were a couple of video games too. I remember there was one for GameCube that I had, and I think it was pretty bad. This franchise isn't really about capturing beasts, although technically there are beasts captured inside of the Beyblades, you know, as part of the anime and the manga, unfortunately not as part of the real toy consumer experience. But the consumer experience is what I'm talking about, because you had to collect all of these different things, and they were kind of beast themed. From a toy buyer standpoint, it was kind of a beast capture endeavor. Mostly I wanted to bring them up because I love them. I just love them so much. The other reason that I just had to bring up Beyblades is because of their historical significance. I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Moses and a wet little piece of something called the Red Sea. How do you think he parted those waters? That's right, with a Beyblade. You know I had to let it rip. Thank you, Beyblades, wherever you are. The third honorable mention I gotta talk about is Jade Cocoon. I'm bringing it up again because it's something that personally I have a lot of stock in. There's this great PlayStation game, came out in 1999. It got a sequel in 2001. This is a role-playing game in which you catch beasts and they fight for you, which is a theme that we're going to have recurring on this list. The cool thing about this game was you could merge the beasts that you captured into slightly worse and uglier beasts. This game had a great soundtrack, and even though it's not like a massive, memorable franchise, I just wanted to give it a shout out. Shouts out to you, Jade Cocoon. Thank you. Next franchise I want to talk about is Fighting Foodons. I don't know if you remember Fighting Foodons. You probably don't. It was a manga, there was an anime. I don't think it ran for very long. There was even video games, at least one, maybe multiple, but I never played them. I don't even know if they got a North America release. So they're not really beasts. It's kind of just like anthropomorphic foods. You don't really capture them, you're a chef and you cook them with magic somehow. I don't remember the details, but there were some real classic designs on that show, like Fried Ricer, Scarinara, and of course, how could we forget Spaghetti About It. The main reason though that I'm bringing this show up, not because I liked it, not because I thought it was a particularly good beast capture franchise, but because it had an amazing theme song. I wake up with this shit stuck in my head sometimes, still. To this day. Legendary theme song. Let's move on. The fifth honorable mention that I would like to make is for a little franchise called Metabots. Metabots was a series of role-playing games that came out in Japan starting in 1997. The anime got its release in Japan starting in 1999, ran through 2001, at which point it was picked up in North America and ran until 2003. It was a good show, pretty standard anime for that age group at the time. They had some really cool toys, and there was at least one game that I remember really liking for the Game Boy Advance. So the robots in this game are not beasts, of course, and they're not in-game captured as much as they are purchased, which means that this whole Metabots franchise is built on a level of late capitalism and classism that I'm having a hard time getting behind as an adult. But despite the negative socio-political implications, there were some pretty iconic designs in Metabots. Of course, there was Rokusho, Sumilodon, Peppercat, the main Metabot of the show, Metabee, and who could forget little Churly Bear of the Ankle Biters gang. So big kudos to Metabots. I just feel like I had to talk about it on this list. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get to the meat of this issue. Let's get to this top 10 list. Starting with number 10, Bakugan. Bakugan was a show that went to air in 2007. It was a Japanese-Canadian anime coming from the country of Japanada. It didn't do very well in Japan. The first season kind of failed, and the next seasons didn't really go to air. It was mostly just successful in North America. But it was directed by Mitsuo Hashimoto, who was a director on Dragon Ball Z and a storyboard artist on the Beyblades anime. The plot of the show is your standard fare. Some cards fall from the sky, some kids become Bakugan warriors, but then there's an evil Bakugan named Naga. And Naga wants to use the Infinity Core and the Silent Core to create the perfect core and become all powerful. The designs for the monsters in this game are pretty mediocre, but what is even worse is the naming conventions for these monsters. For example, we have Tigrera, Gorum, Hydronoid, and Drago. And I was probably just too old at this point, but the toys honestly look pretty whack too. Here we can see our friends Tigrera, Gorum, Hydronoid, and Drago. The gameplay itself also, to me, an outsider, seems pretty boring. That's pretty low on the list, but it had to be mentioned. Bakugan. Now, on to number 9. This one's pretty out there. I had to mention it because of my personal affinity for it. Again, there's a lot of bias in this video. I don't care. Hate me in the comments. Flint the Time Detective. Flint the Time Detective was an anime that aired in Japan 1998 to 1999. It got its North American release in the year 2000. Flint, who was voiced by R. Martin Klein, provided the voice of a character in a franchise that we're going to be talking about later in the list, is a young cave boy who was fossilized with his father. He was later revived by a scientist to become a member of the Time Police. His father was defossilized improperly and is just a big old slab of stone with some eyes that becomes a hammer and also can shoot a laser beam. They travel through time with the Time Police collecting time shifters, which are these little beasts that need to be captured. The primary time beast that you're going to find in the show is named Get Along, and his superpower is to make everyone get along with each other. The names are not great. There's also Coconut, a coconut-shaped pirate who has the ability to sense the weather, and Batterball, whose special power is the ability to make you good at sports. Each of these time beasts can also evolve forms. Here you can see Bubblegum, and then you see him in his good evolution and his evil evolution. I really wanted to include this one on the list because Flint is encouraged as a character to catch them all, if you will. It's going to be a kind of a recurring theme. And much like Fighting Foodons, this show has a spectacular intro song. It's not much of a franchise, but I really wanted to talk about it anyways. It's just kind of a cool little gem. Let's move on to number 8, Yokai Watch. Yokai Watch started as a manga, which came out in 2012, became an anime in Japan in 2014, which moved to North America in 2015. It got 3 movies, a whole grip of video games, including a Just Dance spin-off. When it first came out, it boomed in popularity. People thought it was going to dethrone some of the more well-known Beast Capture franchises. In 2015, it hit a pretty steep drop. I never watched the show, never read the manga, never played any of the games, but I had to include it on this list because it is a true
Beast Capture franchise.
It's a little bit more towards the bottom of the list because, in my opinion, the designs and the naming conventions for the beasts are kind of whack. For example, we have Dawana, which evolves into No More, which evolves into Quit. This sorry sack is named Rockabilly, which, much like the people of its namesake, has a questionably done tattoo on its body. This little guy has the almost impossible to pronounce name Spemp. Spemp. Here we have something that is truly shameful. This is Cheek Squeak and its evolution, Cuttin' Cheese. Another sin that this franchise commits is something that you'll see in a few of these beast capture franchises where they do a lot of recolors. They'll take one beast, they'll just change the colors of the same design and give it a different name. Like we have Beelzebub, which, like, bad enough already, but it's even worse when you find out it is a recolor of a beast called Count Cavity. I guess I don't know which one came first. Maybe Count Cavity is a recolor of Beelzebub. Either way, it's not great. When you have a beast capture franchise, you gotta have good beasts. So, unfortunately, for Yokai Watch, that's where it falls short, which is why it's at the number 8 spot. Also, real quick, I would just like to include this design, which is very clearly a personal attack on me. Coming in at number 7 on this list, do you like that? We got a franchise called Neopets. Hopefully, most of you will know what Neopets is. If you don't, welcome to the internet. I hope you're enjoying your first day. Neopets is a website that launched in 1999. It is a Flash-based beast collection. It's not really about capturing beasts. It's kind of about adopting them because they're your pets. It's much sweeter. You play games with them, you feed them, you gotta keep feeding them a lot because they run out of food a lot, and it's hard to get food. Some of my favorites are Teko, Mirka, and Ruki, but real ones will also remember Chambi and Waki and Nemo. I loved this website. I spent a lot of time on this website playing Mirka Chase, which is Snake. I was obsessed with collecting enough Neo points to buy weapons and armor for my Neopets and make them fight each other. There are two sad things about this website. One is that it's probably going to shut down in the year 2020 because Flash will no longer be a viable mode of animation and interaction. Number 2 is that it was briefly, 5 years, owned by the Church of Scientology and adopted many of its business practices. Pretty weird stuff. There were games, there's a whole website, there were toys. I would say it's a pretty solid franchise. I definitely think it deserves a spot here on the list. That's why I gave it the old lucky number 11. Moving on up, we've got another franchise that has a special place for me right here. We're going to be talking about Dragon Quest, aka Dragon Warrior, but more specifically, Dragon Quest Monsters, aka Dragon Warrior Monsters, and also Dragon Quest V. Dragon Quest is a long-running JRPG franchise whose first game came out in 1986. GameSpot has called this game the most influential JRPG of all time. The specific games that I'm talking about, the Dragon Warrior Monsters or Dragon Quest Monsters offshoots and Dragon Quest V, were major influencers on the beast capture video game archetype. I was obsessed with the Dragon Warrior Monsters Game Boy Color game, which I borrowed from my friend Travis. I told him I would give it back when I beat it, and I never got 100% completion. Sorry, Travis. I still have your game. I don't mean to overuse this word, but there are some truly iconic beast designs, including Slime, Draki, and Watabao, characters that you've probably seen even if you've never played any of these games. There's also some designs that are just plain fun, like Mad Dragon and Mudron and Slime Knight, as well as some classic RPG staples like the tree with the face, the skeletal dragon, and of course, the Mimic. Our BFF, the Mimic. These games didn't take themselves too seriously, which is something I really appreciate, but the sprite work for these monsters is just phenomenal. It still holds up even to this day. Here's some examples. The whole Dragon Quest franchise isn't a beast capture franchise, but it has enough games that are in that vein, I felt like it needed to be brought up. It's just kind of underrated in the pantheon of the genre. So shouts out to Slime. A real one. Now, coming in at number 5, our old friend Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Began, as many of these franchises began, as a manga in 1996, which got an anime adaptation in 1998 in Japan, and then in 2001 in North America. It is a wildly successful franchise. Even though it's well known, I'm not really crazy about the beast design. We all remember Dark Magician, of course, and we all remember Blue Eyes White Dragon, but do you remember Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon? Or what about Deep Eyes White Dragon? What about Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon? Or Azure Eyes Ultimate Dragon? Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon? Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon? Beast Eyes Pendulum Dragon? Red Eyes Baby Dragon? Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon? And of course, Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon. This blank eyes blank dragon template, that was a small fraction. You should Google it sometime. There's like dozens of them. It seems like all of the heavy hitters in this franchise are either elf-looking ass people or dragon-looking ass things. And of course, we can't forget
Exodia, the forbidden one.
So I'm not really crazy about the bestiary that this franchise provides. I'm not saying it's all bad, but like, it's not the most creative. That being said, the anime was pretty cool. And the manga was great. I read that in middle school, and like, it's dark. People get like murdered, like set on fire murdered by the main character. It's pretty intense. I mostly had to include this on the list based on success of the franchise alone. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a household name, and it's one of the most memed cartoons of all time. Lest we forget You've Activated My Trap Card, or Exodia Obliterate, or Heart of the Cards, etc. Not to mention, it is responsible for perhaps the most badass looking toy of all time. You know I keep that MF Dual Disc on me. So shouts out to Yu-Gi-Oh! For making mad pape and, just rolling in the deep. Number 4 beast capture franchise of all time is Megami Tensei. The first Megami Tensei game was released on Super Famicom in 1992. Since then, there are a total of 55 in-franchise video games, not including the 30 mobile games that have also been developed. Throughout this massive expanse of material, there are almost 1,000 demons that constitute the Megami Tensei bestiary. All of these designs are pulled from existing folklore and mythology like Christian mythology, Greek mythology, Hindu mythology, Norse mythology, and even just classic pieces of literature. There are also several demons modeled after a part of the human anatomy that I am not allowed to show on YouTube. So here those are. And also there's this. All of the beasts in these games are technically demons that are battled and then can be summoned by using a computer. I don't really know what the rules are with that. But because there are so many games, there are a lot of different gameplay modes, and this whole mythos is approached from a lot of different angles. Despite the fact that the demons in this game are not exactly original creations, the way that they are designed and presented is so unique and interesting that I've got to give Megami Tensei a lot of credit. This franchise deserves a spot on the list, maybe for the breadth of its material alone. Number 3. Monster Rancher. The first Monster Rancher game was released for the PlayStation 1 in 1997, and it utilized a bit of tech that was really unique at the time. Players could insert existing discs, DVDs, CDs, other PlayStation games, and Monster Rancher would read them and generate a monster from the data on that disc. There were specific discs that could be inserted into a PlayStation to get you specific, unique, rare monsters. For example, a Harry Potter DVD would generate an Owlden. The Led Zeppelin CD How the West Was Won would summon a Peacockin, and certain CDs of Christmas music would get you a monster called a Satan Claus. The gameplay of Monster Rancher games is less focused on going out and collecting all of the monsters and more focused on breeding and training up individual monsters for battle. Breeding was a big part of this game, and it was pretty straightforward the way it worked. For example, if you bred a hare with a worm, you'd get a Corone. If you breed a tiger and a Zilla, you get a Guji. And if you breed a Suezo and a Pixie, you'll get Pink Eye. Monster Rancher produced 17 games, including 3 mobile games, which is a pretty impressive catalog. There was also the anime, which was excellent. And when I say excellent, I mean I liked it a lot when I was a kid. But in retrospect, it only ran for 73 episodes, and I'm afraid to rewatch it because I don't think it will hold up. But what does hold up about the Monster Rancher anime is the theme song. I was transported to a faraway land, which includes the repeated phrase, "Monsters rule." And if you don't think monsters rule, then get the heck out of my video, you goober. So big up Monster Rancher for being a truly weird beast capture franchise. Monsters rule. Okay, we're at the top 2. How's it gonna go? How's he gonna do it? Well, I'll tell you, the number 2 slot, top 10 beast capture franchises of all time, goes to Digimon. Digimon began in 1997, basically as a response to the Tamagotchis, but these ones were for boys. I need water. These virtual pets were less about feeding and raising and making cute and more about fighting and fighting and fighting. Since then, there have been 44 Digimon video games, which range from RPGs to 2D fighters to card battle games, and there was even a racing game. That's not including the thing that sometimes video game franchises do, where they will release multiple versions of the same games that you have to spend more money. I'm looking at you, number 1. Much like Megami Tensei, this impressive catalog has created an equally as impressive bestiary. There are over 800 unique Digimon, over 1,000 when you include recolors and alternate forms. Part of the reason there are so many of them is because the life cycle of a Digimon is so expansive. A Digimon begins as an egg, and then it hatches into a fresh Digimon, transitioning into an in-training Digimon, which then becomes a rookie, which digivolves into a champion, which digivolves into an ultimate, and then to Mega, and then more Mega, and then the most Mega Digimon that you could even imagine. A lot of the beast designs from this franchise are just classic, like Agumon, Terriermon, and Tentomon. Some of them, I will admit, are kind of whack, like Nanamon, who is basically Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Edamon, who is a rock star monkey, and Sukamon, who's a big golden piece of poop. Another criticism of the Digimon designs is that some of them are just guns, like Revolmon, and Tankmon, and Gundramon. Also, you're probably noticing a bit of a recurring theme in the naming convention, and I bet you're wondering, is there a Mon? Yes, there is a Mon. Besides the video games, there were some pretty great toys. There was a card game. The show is great. There have been a lot of seasons. What I really want to talk about are the movies, and what I really want to talk about is the first movie, Digimon the Movie. Digimon the Movie is spectacular. It was directed by Mamoru Hosoda, who also directed Summer Wars and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and The Boy and the Beast, which are all just great movies. And the Digimon movie is great as well. In the American release, there's even a short cartoon at the beginning of the movie, an Angela Anaconda cartoon, in which Angela Anaconda, the titular character, goes to the movie theater to see Digimon the Movie, and while in the theater, she has a fantasy about digivolving into a Digimon from a human. She becomes Angelamon in order to defeat Nanette Manoir, who we all know is a stuck-up jerk-face snob. It's a really weird bit of media. It feels like some bizarre amalgam nostalgic fever dream. It's just cool that it exists. This franchise has seen a lot of commercial success, and it has deuced a lot of tent over the years. I'm a big fan of the Digimon games, of the Digimon show, the movies. I even played the card game. So I think it is well deserved that it receives the number 2 spot on this list. Thank you, Digimon. Digital monsters. Digimon are the champions. And now finally, the time has come. The number one spot. I've alluded to it several times. Y'all know what it is. The number one beast capture franchise of all time, say it with me, is Skannerz. Released in the year 2000, at the turn of the millennia, Skannerz was an electronic game designed by Radical Games. The first generation of Skannerz contained 3 separate gaming devices, each one representing a different tribe. There was the Zendra tribe, the Patak tribe, and the Ujalu tribe. The idea of the game is you take these toys, and using Radical Games' proprietary technological algorithm, you enter the grocery store with your mom after school, and you scan the barcodes on packages of food, and each barcode will give you a different monster to battle and capture. So why are there 3 different tribes? Well, it's because there's lore. On the planet of Chaos, that's the name of the planet. It's not a chaotic planet, it's the name of the planet. The Zendra tribe, the Patak tribe, and the Ujalu tribe were at war with each other, fighting for control. When the war became too intense and they threatened to destroy their home, the monsters from these tribes traveled all the way to Earth, where they hid in the barcodes of Honey Smacks and Mint Oreos, biding their time, waiting for the day that they could re-emerge and take over Earth. Some kid named Flux develops the technology to capture these monsters, tries to convert them from their original tribe into a single unified tribe and make them stop fighting, I guess. And that's where Gen 2 of Skannerz comes in with the Skannerz Commander toy. After Skannerz Commander, we have Skannerz Racers, which has nothing to do with the greater Skannerz universe, and you just collect and race cars. We can forget about that one. And then, the 4th generation of Skannerz games is the Skannerz Battle Orb, which I have anything to say about. This Skannerz bestiary is by the books. It is comprehensive. For example, each tribe has their own monster that is modeled after some sort of amorphous fluid. We have drool, we have sludge, and we have suds. There's also your regular old average Joe monsters like Bog, Trog, and Bob. And what about the ladies? Don't worry, Skannerz has you covered because we have Siren, She-Gun, and Ladybot. But of course, a bestiary wouldn't be complete if each tribe didn't have their own round boy. I'm talking about Cyball, I'm talking about Spirit Orb, and I'm talking about Rip 187. More like Rip in Peace 182. Am I right? Where are you? Oh, but Nick King, I get that the bestiary was great. I get the proprietary technical algorithm was a development in technology the likes of which had never been seen. But how were the graphics? Were the graphics good? You see for yourself. You tell me if those graphics are good. I don't have a ton of other things to say about Skannerz. I never actually got to own one. I always wanted one though. So that's the end of my list. There aren't really any other Beast Capture franchises that I want to talk about. But let me know, do you think I missed any? How would you rank them? Did I make any mistakes? Obviously, do as much hatred on me in the comments as you think is appropriate. If you liked this video, please give it one of these. If you really liked this video, please don't forget to Exodia obliterate that MF subscribe button and ding the bell so you get those notifications, the sweet notification. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, you can check me out on Twitch, and check out my Patreon page if you really want to be a generous person to me. This has been your boy, Nick King, Beast Capture enthusiast. Love for friends. Well, hold on. Where the let's and nope, got those dates wrong. The big all of the big old what is this shit? Another criticism. Another